lot to follow on from that speech, particularly though I'm so delighted to hear the last bit. The last sentence was the best bit of it, because I think Sarah did such an amazing job. I've had people popping up to me all the time in Parliament saying, oh yeah, that candidate in South Swindon, what was her name again? Sarah, she was really good. Yeah, we need to make sure that she keeps going, genuinely. So I was very, very pleased to see about the result there. I'm really pleased to hear that you're up for the fight again, because I think we probably will have an election in a few months rather than a few years if we continue on the same political trajectory. The first thing that I wanted to say, a bit like Sarah, was really just to thank people, because there are lots of people in this room that I've worked with for many years, actually, both as a member of the European Parliament and when I was a candidate in Reading East, actually, before this, and my goodness, I'm so pleased to see us back in that seat, and also, obviously, now as an MP, and particularly when I was the candidate in Oxford East running up to this election. There's a lot of people here who put a lot of shoe leather in and very sunny days, and I'm very, very grateful to you all for all of your help. Some people have said, you didn't need to run that bigger campaign, but I have to say, when it started, it really looked a bit shaky. I mean, Andrew Smith, such a well-known MP for 3 decades. Before that, for 10 years, he was a councillor as well. So 40 years in Oxford, very, very well known, very well respected. To me, actually, the model of what a constituency MP should be like. So somebody who, because of his constituency work, had drawn a lot of natural Tories towards voting Labour at general elections. And I thought there's going to be a big change there with the new candidate. It's going to be quite difficult to persuade people to stay with us. So that was looking difficult. The national opinion polls as well were looking very, very dicey 5 weeks out before the election. And thank goodness things really, really changed. And I think one of the main reasons why they changed was exactly as Sarah said, because of our manifesto being so strong. Let's face it, it was also because the Tories made a lot of mistakes, but I think it was also because of our People's Army. It was because of all of us. We were out there getting the message out, showing that politicians aren't aliens, that they're actually ordinary people like us, interested in changing the world. And we showed that when we talked to people on the doorstep and we persuaded them to come towards Labour. So I think that did change things, because we had a lot more people out there on the ground. So big, big thanks to all of you for that. I think now what people in areas like me have got to do is work out how we can help our comrades in now winnable seats to make sure that when that election does come, we're going to be there backing them and fighting really hard to make sure that they get in. So we're going to have to organise that, obviously, regionally, work out how it's going to operate. But as soon as we have, I think we'll be fighting really hard for that as constituency Labour parties. Sarah's absolutely right. I think we've got the wind in our sails now as a Labour Party. You know, it feels like we have the momentum with us, to coin a phrase. It feels like we're all pushing in the same direction. We're all getting there, I think, together. And I think that's terrific. Shared purpose, all trying to make sure that we can hold the Tories to account, making sure we build up that support for the next election. And there's an absolutely terrific atmosphere in the Parliamentary Labour Party. It's absolutely brilliant. You know, I've been in meetings before, obviously, I was allowed to attend them as an MEP, and sometimes I've gone along and I thought, oh, I'm really not looking forward to this. You know, I'm somebody who's been, I suppose I would traditionally say that I've been on the left of the party, but I've kind of got on with everybody, and sometimes I've been thinking about those meetings, oh, I'm a bit worried about these, you know, I hope we're not going to have too many disputes, too many arguments. How different is it now? Everybody working together, thinking how can we really take the fight to the Tories. And I think we're really trying to do 2 things, and I agree with Sarah's assessment of this. First of all, we've got a chance to actually get quite a lot of our manifesto implemented, because the Tories' programme is so thin, they've got so little discipline, that if we really push hard and yes, work with other parties, we can get some elements of that put into practice, particularly because it was so positively received by the general population. So we've got a big chance there. But also, we do have to grind down the Conservatives all the time. Every day, they'll have question after question. We'll be keeping them there until late at night. I hate saying that, you know, somebody who likes the work-life balance, but anyway, I think for Labour MPs, it's going to be quite a lot of work for the moment, because we're going to be trying to really grind them down until they discover that it's not tenable anymore to have a coalition that is based merely on political expediency with the DUP. You know, how can they describe themselves as a modern Conservative party when they're willing to go in with a party like that? Absolutely appalling. So that's what we're going to be trying to do. We've got 47 more of us overall, 4 more in the South East, doubling our representation. My God, I mean, I was so delighted. You're a place like Portsmouth South, where I thought it would be, you know, a decade before we'd be able to get back in somewhere like that, and we did it absolutely terrific. Of course, we need to make sure that we're getting back in South Swindon. We need to make sure we're picking up places like Hastings as well, Reading West too, many others. But anyway, we're getting in the right direction, aren't we? Exactly. We really do. We've got to get it right, haven't we? We really, really have to. But as I said, I think we've got a lot of opportunities there. I think we've really got a snapshot of how weak the Conservatives are in the Queen's speech that was released earlier this week. I've been kind of warned by a lot of my colleagues that, oh well, as a new Member of Parliament, or indeed any Member of Parliament, if you're not in the shadow cabinet, then it's very, very difficult to kind of cope with the Queen's speech, because it goes on for so long and you're crammed into the back of the House of Lords chamber and it gets really hot and all this kind of thing. You might be standing very, very closely. Of course, if you stood closely to a Labour comrade, one would hope that's not too much of a problem. But anyway, you can end up in interesting company. Say no more. But I have to say, it was over so quickly. They were, you know, we were in there for 5 minutes, then we're back out again. I mean, it was, I think, to be honest, a disgraceful Queen's speech. I was listening for recognition of things like our housing crisis, and there was, what, 2 sentences in there, something like that, about housing, saying that the way they're going to deal with our housing problems is through transparency, because their only policy on housing seems to be getting rid of agency fees, something that Labour pushed, actually, for many years, before they took it on. That seems to be their only policy in that area, given the enormity of homelessness and housing issues in our country. NHS funding crisis, again, virtually nothing about that, nothing about the strain on our health services that we all experience so often. One of the main reasons why NHS workers were flooding into the campaign in Oxford, I'm sure it's the same in Swindon as well, and much of the rest of the country. Nothing also, which particularly concerned me, around protecting our science. Mentions of particular flagship projects they want to invest in, electric vehicles and space technology, but actually no detail on that, so very little help actually for those of us who want to see action in practice, like to keep electric mini production just down the road. So very little detail there, but nothing generally on how they're going to protect our science post-Brexit. I was listening and it just didn't come. And I thought, for a British government to not be backing British science, the best in the world, is an absolute disgrace. Very, very disappointing. So very, very weak Queen's speech, and a very weak government in general, a concerningly weak government actually in general. And so I think, again, we saw that, and it's a difficult issue, and I don't think we should politicise it in the way that some have done. You know, I've seen some of the, for example, the socialist workers campaigning around this, and I think we need to strike the right tone on this issue. We need to be respectful, and of course think first of all about the victims of the Grenfell fire. That's got to be the most important thing that we are thinking about now, just as we did at the start of this meeting. But I am very disturbed that we seem to have a government that doesn't realise, when it has a disaster on that scale, that it has to have a grip immediately. It's only realised, you know, virtually a week after that happened, that the process wasn't working, that the local council couldn't cope, the famous Easy Services Council, that funnily enough, when you strip everything away, virtually nothing is left, that you can't back people provide the services that are needed, that they've only realised that now. And actually, my first question in the House of Commons, the first thing that I asked was of the Prime Minister, asking her, is she now going to get rid of their very damaging policy in relation to regulation, that for every new regulation now in this country, you have to get rid of 2 other regulations. And I said to her, are you going to get rid of that for fire safety? And she wouldn't answer it directly. She was incapable of answering it. And you think, this is the government that we have. So in a way, obviously, as a Labour person, I'm pleased to see that the government are wriggling, but I'm equally quite disturbed. And particularly when it comes to the Brexit negotiations, because rather than opening this up to others who might be able to help them, instead they're continuing in their own blinkered way, ploughing the same old furrow, not listening to other actors, not taking on board other points of view, not having the kind of cross-party approach that I think that we should have. And I actually don't agree with every Labour voice on this. I think we should have a cross-party approach actually to Brexit. I think that would help us, although of course it's quite late on in the day now that we've only got a year really to be sorting out the details of a deal. So there's a lot for us to be doing in Parliament, that is certainly for sure. It's been a very busy period. I think it's a time when we can achieve a lot as a Labour Party in Parliament, but of course we've got to achieve a lot on the ground as well. And I agree with Sarah's kind of note of caution. We have, of course, got to be delighted about the results that we had. They're so much better than what I was anticipating and many others were anticipating. But we have also got to be sanguine about the rise in the Tory vote share, the squeeze that's happened, the polarisation. I think in particular, we've got to keep those young people with us. And you know, I see some of them here in this meeting, so it's great that you're here. We need to keep them with us, because I think unless we keep showing them that politics can change things, and give them examples of that, show how their activism changed things, how their vote has changed things, they may not actually stick with us. I think a lot of young people felt so let down by the referendum results that caused many of them to question politics, actually. We don't want them to be doing that again, having voted Labour. We've got to keep them active with us. So I think that means particularly over the summer, which is hard because we're all exhausted. I mean, we had county council elections, then, and of course before that the referendum, then we went straight into this general election. But we're going to have to keep the campaign machine going. And I think just the very last thing that I wanted to say is just really that I was really, really disappointed that we lost some brilliant county councillors in this area at the county council elections. I wish they'd happened just that little bit later, so that maybe the upswing in our support could have then affected the county elections. But I think there's so much that we can still achieve on the county, holding the Tories to account there, as well as, of course, on town councils and through Parliament and through all of your activism. So thanks very, very much, and looking forward to the discussion. Thanks very much.